Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Grant Terrell. I have the good fortune of leading the nonprofit practice here at Salesforce.org. Been in this space now about 9 years and feel excited and honored to get to work with the great organizations here that we have today. Thank you to our partners, Provisio. They've been a wonderful partner in our environment now for many, many years. And we have the good fortune of working with them and then working with you all who are working to make the world a better place. So at Salesforce, I feel our team is honored to do that work. So thank you to our partners and customers, Pack Clinics, Victor, LifeMoves, for doing this work and absorb this all. Enjoy your week. We're halfway through, so I know we're on the down climb now. We're at the peak here, so this is a great time for this event, and then we're in the back half of the week. So thank you so much. I'll turn it over to you all, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Grant. Yeah, he gets the music, and we're going to get the rest of it. I think we're waiting on the rest of the presentation, although I think you cued the music. Can you hear me okay out there? Can you hear me? Okay? Okay, perfect. Grant's being very humble. We're fortunate to have him here as a fellow Chicagoan. We appreciate you supporting us here, Grant, and I think above all, we support not just yourself, but all of Salesforce and the partners for wonderful organizations just as yourselves that are gathering with us here today. So we have a little bit here before we get to the presentation, which I will go through the agenda. For those that I haven't met, my name's Travis Bloomfield. I'm the CEO of Provisio, and it's my pleasure to be joined by wonderful I would call colleagues and partners here on the panel with me today. So as we're waiting on the presentation to get started, I want to make sure we have plenty of time for the questions for our panelists and the wonderful agenda that we have here today. I know it's very busy for everyone running around and getting from one to another. We thank you for coming up to, is it Tehama, whatever the name of the street is. But it's really good. But I will say that on behalf of Salesforce, our partner Off-Prem, can you raise your hands? Are you here? Off-Prem? Awesome. Mowgli, and of course Provisio, thank you for being here. I know that we all have many choices in our travel, or actually that's my Southwest PTSD. But sincerely, I want to thank you all for being here, for making this a familial gathering. And that was said last week, just in terms of what we hope to accomplish being here and sharing a lot of information from wonderful organizations that have taken on some very challenging and important modernizations within their own respective organizations. So as I get started, from an AV perspective, is the presentation close? Maybe?
We have a little song.
No, that's not it. They're getting there.
Well, let me just say, while we're waiting, you introduced a lot of people. I think it would be fair to just offer a round of applause. What do you think? Just to thank all of our partners, sponsors.
This is why I'm sitting to Aubrey's right. Yeah.
And if you can keep clapping until the video gets cued.
I'm really looking forward to getting to the introductions, and we'll go through that once we get into the slides. But I wanted to kind of set the table for where we're at. Hi, Val. And really, I'm sure this week we've heard a lot, maybe about agentic AI and all things AI. But in this panel for the Human Services Leadership Forum, now I can change it. From a moderator perspective, the one person that you haven't met is the wonderful Valerie Brown, who's an industry leader here at Salesforce, who's worked and probably spoken with many of you. And from an agenda perspective, we'll get off to the kickoff and welcome. I think we're already there. We'll get in with the CEO Visionary Panel. We're going to ask questions of our panelists here from wonderful organizations. They'll introduce themselves individually here in a moment. But I think what we're trying to convey is some of what their journey in decision-making looks like and answer some pretty tough questions, to be quite frank with you. After that, we'll ask some questions. We'll open it back up. I think one of the things we've learned over time is to make sure that we have plenty of time to ask questions, very interactive. And then we're going to change, and we're going to go to the transformation folks that actually are making this happen within the organizations, which is really great. We're going to call that the transformation leaders, and that'll be led by Val. And Val will be leading that discussion. And we'll ask some more questions, we'll follow up with some information, and then we'll get into a networking session. So to get moving, our visionaries, to set the table when they introduce themselves, I had started to talk about this week here at Dreamforce and probably the overwhelming nature and discussion around AI. And beyond AI, digital transformation, data consolidation, all of those great things. But the amount of information that's being sent and processed and the amount of transformation that our panelists are going to discuss, I just want to set the tone as to exactly what we're taking on within our organizations. And I went back a little bit, and for some of you, this is not going to be applicable, but in 1997, half of the households that actually had computers in there or internet access were actually on the web in 97. Half of those households that actually had computers. Anybody around 97 with computers?
This is fun.
Okay, right, hands up, hands up. 2 years later in 1999, a couple crazy kids here in San Francisco decided that, geez, if you have a browser, and can get to the internet, we'll provide an application for you, and we'll call it software as a service, or what is now cloud computing, where we'll take that responsibility from you. 2 years after most households had just gained opportunity to the internet. And when you think about that, that's a crazy leap in a very short period of time when others are probably just trying to get their arms around client server, other mainframe environments. And then of course we have Y2K. But if you fast forward 25 years now, we're still trying to modernize platforms. We're still trying to unify data, right? But for what? I don't know how many of you have met this individual, but one of the brightest minds at Salesforce is a gentleman named Peter Coffey. Anybody ever talked to or met Peter Coffey? Okay, Peter Coffey, I think his official title is like Vice President of Strategic Research or some big title. But I had the pleasure of meeting him in 2016 in New York City, and he was kind enough to enter into a side conversation with me because it just intrigued me what he was talking about in terms of data. And what he said was, if data doesn't change behavior, it's just record keeping. If data doesn't change behavior, it's just record keeping. So we're gathered to listen about the different journeys with our wonderful panelists. And as we think about the internet coming of age, how that changed the world, and even it was 2007 when we were able to hold more information in the palm of our hand than ever in human history, right? And now we're on this precedence where, you know, what was actually, to quote Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, we're in the midst of the most important technology of our lifetime, AI. Most important technology of our lifetime. And with the major Salesforce announcement, with their partnership with OpenAI, I think that actually Greg Brockman, who's the president and co-founder of OpenAI, made a statement which is why we're all here today. And his statement is, AI brings a renaissance of human agency and quality of life for everyone. AI brings a renaissance of human agency and quality of life for everyone. And I'd like to think that's why we're all here. So with that said, I'd like for each of you to introduce yourself, please. We'll start with you, Simona. If you would please introduce yourself, your name, role, high-level overview of your mission, and please share your why, your perspective on the role of technology and digital transformation and how that plays fully into achieving Victor's mission.
Hi, everyone. My name is Simona Cataldo. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Victor. Victor is one of the largest behavioral health organizations in California. We have 24 locations across the state, and we serve thousands of clients every year. We mainly have children and family services, about 80%. The rest 20% is for adults. But we really specialize in the highest need, most complex clients. And because of that, our model is mainly field-based, so we go where our clients need us. Service excellence is a core value of ours and our top strategic priority. It has always been that. We at Victor talk a lot about preserve the core and embrace change. So that's a good example of that's our core. It will always be there. But the change we're embracing, I think our arms are not big enough for it. So I'm saying that to say that everything that we do really comes from that point of view and perspective of constantly wanting to do the best we can to provide the best service possible to our clients. So our digital transformation really comes from that place where we realize that without that technology and really shifting our mindset from technology being a tool to technology really becoming a true team member, we couldn't really accomplish the vision that we have in mind when it comes to providing the most excellent care we can provide to our clients. And with that comes being able to really leverage all of the services we can provide that we have available and making them available to our clients across the board, irrespective of their geographical area, because we have a lot of expertise within the organization, and technology has allowed us to really get there where it's available to everyone and it's not limited to the geographical area in which clients live. And you'll hear more about how we did that. But
Thank you, Simona. Kathy?
Good afternoon, Kathy McCarthy. I'm the CEO and President of Pacific Clinics. And our mission, they're all watching, I don't remember it. Our mission is to integrate mental health and social services to advance health equity and to ensure that children, youth, adults, and families have access to care that results in well-being. It's something really close to that. And for us, this is what I say, when we're the largest nonprofit behavioral health organization in California. Simona and I are friends. I think we became CEOs about the same time, so buddies here. 2,400 employees. We reach over 100,000 people each year. So it's a large scale operation, lots of moving parts, over 200 programs in our organization, covering many of the same areas that Simona just referenced on quite a large scale. What I'll say about where it fits in, as you mentioned about technology, it was really important to us. So we are the vision of a merger that occurred in 2022. So Pacific Clinics and Hospital Family Services merged. That's how we got to 2,400 employees really fast. And it became important to us at the outset that we were not, no culture was going to adopt another culture, but we really needed to do the deep work to determine what our culture was going to be and what our strategy was going to be going forward. So one of the things that I really appreciate, we reached out, obviously our board was intimately involved in our setting our strategic priorities, but the intentionality around technology was really important to us, and to put a stake in the ground as we change board members to be able to go back and say, we committed to this. so that they knew that we were in it for the long game, and that, and certainly people who came to work for us and continue to work for us know that that's an important part of our development. So I can, and I have this so I can read. She just said it's too small to read, and she's right. But one of our 4 pillars, we have 4 pillars in our strategic plan: uplift, engage, enrich, and transform. In our engage pillar, this is the intentionality part of it, is to leverage culture, practice, and technology to provide the best experience for our clients and our employees. And that's really, and both pieces are really important. We're in a field, everyone in this room is involved in a field that has a workforce shortage that will not be resolved in our lifetime, at least, well, I'm older than you guys, so in my lifetime. And it's really incumbent upon us, one, to take good care of the employees who work for us and do this really hard work, but just as importantly, that the care is outstanding and that we stretch those really precious human resources the best way we can. And that there are lots of ways to do that, but one of the pieces really needs to be that technology piece, so that we're very clear that we are going to enhance and augment the services with technology to take as much of the administrative burden, repetition, agonizing, time-wasting activity, and do as much as we can to ensure that they are focusing on why they came to work in this field, which is to serve people. So for us, we're on a journey. We're 4 years into our journey. And I think after what I learned today, we've got a lot more to do. We're on to more journeys, but I've just been really impressed with how well the workforce, our employees, have engaged. I think we have 30 leaders here, some of them are sitting here, that are here today. So that's also part of the commitment, is we want this expectation about technology to be as deep in the organization as we can make it. So that it's not being sold from the top down, but it's actually being demanded by the people who serve the clients. So that's
wonderful. Thank you, Kat. Aubrey?
Good afternoon, everybody. Aubrey Merriman, the CEO of LifeMoves. If you don't know, LifeMoves is the largest provider of interim housing and supportive services. We are primarily in the Silicon Valley area in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties. We serve just over 6,400 individuals and families who are experiencing homelessness. And we have over 24 interim housing locations and counting. We have 2 in production, and we're really excited about the direction in which the organization is going on that front. Having said that, we also live in an area where we have the largest income inequality gap, and more people that live in our area have a higher likelihood of becoming homeless than they do becoming billionaires. And so we recognize the economic reality that are really tidal wave forces in which we work. And so with that, our mission is to end homelessness. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, very complicated to achieve. And we do that through really powerful supportive services and leveraging really powerful partnerships. And our relationship with Provisio and Salesforce is an example of those powerful partnerships. And so that's why we exist. Everything comes on top of that fundamental premise for our existence. And so for us, innovation, technological transformation, it's not a question of how much it costs or can we afford to do it. It's the reality of what price we would pay because we can't afford to not do it. And I think for our organization, like many other organizations in this space, it's no longer enough to tread water. You can't just tread water in this environment. Our communities need us too much, and we have a moral and a business obligation to do more than tread water. So it's about how do we deliberately carve a path to that horizon that allows us to scale impact. And for us, part of that answer is technological transformation is what's going to help us scale that impact for what we're trying to do and why we exist. We also know that the success for that endeavor hinges on 3 things. One is, how do we modernize our infrastructure? We have systems that are are outdated, they are stale, they are rigid, and quite honestly, they were built more for reporting than they were for transformation. So that's the one piece, and I see a lot of head nodding for those people that are on the journey further than us. The second one is, how do we unlock our ability to leverage clear and actionable data to offer the best support to the people that are doing the work and for whom we have the privilege of doing the work with? So for our staff and our clients, how are we getting them the maximum outcomes in the shortest amount of time? And how can we deliver support in the most prescriptive and predictive ways to assure ultimate success? And then for us, that the third piece is, how do you bring your team along, and how do you crack the code on how can we scale our impact without scaling our headcount? And how can we leverage technology to do that? In the next panel, you'll hear my CFO talk a little bit more about that. So how do we begin to do that work? And so those are the critical factors for our success. I'll end by saying, if we're really serious about ending homelessness, we have to evolve faster than the crisis that we're trying to solve for right now. And we have to scale ahead of the crisis that we're trying to solve. And we have to iterate and we have to change. Think about it for a minute if Apple decided after the first generation of the iPhone that they were done. Like where would Apple be right now, right? Or if they didn't have their iOS systems updating all the time. So that's the cycle that LifeMoves wants to be in. We want to have an interaction between learning and doing and implementing and evolving at such a clip that it fuels our transformation relentlessly. So that's why we're here. That's why we think the time is now, and I'm excited to talk more about that.
Thank you, and thank you all for your introductions. First question, Kathy. As a leader championing continuous innovation through technology to expand care and improve patient outcomes, what motivates you to continue taking risks and innovate in pursuit of your mission? And what are your secrets for gaining buy-in from your team and board to continue to innovate and transform?
It's a real bummer to share the secrets to the people that work with me right here. So, I mean, I would say for what motivates me, I'm very close to retirement, so I also have a little what the hell in me right now. We've got to get this done. So I would say probably impatience is part of a sort of a trademark of how I operate, and really wanting to see excellence, but to push the pace, to make sure that we're moving as quickly as we can safely, and to be able to constantly be in conversations about risk and benefit and know that we're going to be on the hairy edge of risk to get to those benefits. And it's not hard with a team that wants to do exactly the same thing. So we've got a nice complement of leadership that is touching all aspects of that spectrum of risks to benefit, but I feel like we're really working well in concert. And I think for me, because I'm not a clinical background, I care a lot about leadership. I think what's motivated me is watching, I'll back up and say the technology is the tool. It is ultimately just a tool. And so my energy and time and curiosity is really around how do you build a culture that has enough leadership muscle to be in a constant state of change management and an evolution and transformation. And you have to be okay with sitting in discomfort, because it's uncomfortable to be in transformation, and it's uncomfortable when the tool doesn't work the first time, to still be the champion for let's just go back and we're just going to rework it and we're going to try again, or to make mistakes and not be worried about that. So we've made a significant investment as an organization into leadership development. We're in the third year of a program that has about the top 120 or so executives going through, and we're starting to infuse it deeper into the organization. But for me, that's the most important thing. If the leadership that's going to succeed me has the muscle for change and transformation, the rest of this, we'll figure out the technology, we'll figure out how to do that part. That's what's motivating me. And so it's not a secret because they're all in it. But I would say it's where I felt like what would motivate me to continue to do this work would be to make sure that I'm not the one pushing the rock up the hill, that they're actually asking for the technology. And I feel like we're there. So
That's great. Thank you. Simona, you've led significant organizational change in a relatively short period of time. A major investment of both time and resources. Why now? And how are you fostering a culture of innovation that not only strengthens service delivery, but also ensures your staff feel supported, empowered, and resilient in the face of daily challenges?
So why now is an interesting question. I would say, personally, I suffer from productive paranoia. So that's the why now, because I'm constantly questioning what makes me relevant still. Yeah. And I've been around for a minute, and Victor has been around for more than 1 minute. And so if I think about Victor as an organization and where we are developmentally, we are a mature organization, or we were a mature organization, I would say now. So a few years back, we really started thinking about, we're kind of like at the peak. We've been very successful. We could just be fine and ride this wave. Yeah. But ultimately, that doesn't fit into our DNA as an organization, me personally for sure. And so we really started thinking, well, in organizational development, just like in human development, you have this curve, you reach maturity and then you plateau for a while, and then there is only kind of one thing left, which is you start declining. That's for the human beings. Organizations, however, get a second chance, and that chance really happens when, as you start kind of going down, you decide what's going to be the next thing that is going to restart the cycle.
Right.
And I think for us, it was a combination of the pandemic and then CalAIM and payment reform in California that really forced us to revisit all of our our workflows, our work processes, our infrastructure. And so it was kind of like a bit of a perfect storm, but in a good way, that really forced us to start thinking about how we do things differently.
That's great. Thank you. Aubrey? LifeMoves has a bold ambition, not just to reduce homelessness, but to solve it. And because a catalyst for lasting change, can you share what went into your decision-making process to evolve your technology solutions, and how did you approach addressing the fear of change with your team?
Let me just say a quick flashback. The way you said my name gave me all sorts of principal and fourth grade flashbacks, so try not to do that again.
Anything but.
I appreciate the question, though. Let me contextualize everything, too. I've been with this organization just under 5 years, and in that time, we've experienced hockey stick growth. And so the infrastructure of the organization was far behind the ambition of the organization, so we knew that this was not sustainable. So just from a business viability standpoint, stop, pay attention, figure out what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go. Yeah. The second piece is make sure that if technology is not your area of genius, that you surround yourself with people for which that is their area of genius, and then you can leverage their best thinking about how you need to evolve the organization. Now, having said that, again, it all starts with, and this organization has heard me say this to folks that are here and others, if you don't believe that homelessness is solvable, you're working in the wrong organization. Yeah. And I'm selfish because I want it solved in my lifetime, just because I want to be around to see it and brag about it. Right. And so with that imperative in place and looking at sort of what is our risk tolerance and how do we think about innovation? Innovation happens in three ways, right? It's either forced, accidental, or deliberate. We wanted ours to be deliberate. COVID was the forcing factor that made innovation happen in all three ways. And so one of the things that we looked at internally is not just to look at this as a technology solution. A lot of people say, let's start with the problem you're trying to solve for. I like to start with the people, not just a problem. So start with the people. The people can help you define and shape what we're trying to solve for. Then it becomes a collective solutions-oriented focus, not the CEO saying we are trying to solve this, staff translated and make it happen. So it becomes our vision. Now with that, with a lot of the change that happens, there's fear, there's trepidation. In my experience, most people are pro-change until you ask them to change. Yeah. And then they go, oh, this change thing is not so hot. It sounded good before. And we are at an AI inflection point. So part of our job as an organization is to demystify that. And people have, in my mind, a consciousness that's RAM. And I'm not talking about a member of the LA football team, but it's really, will IT replace me or accentuate me, right? And so that's what they look at. So how are we painting the picture that this is more than just a technology solution? Yeah. It's a new way for us to show up. Yeah. And it's a new way for us to scale our impact proportionally without having to grow the organization any further and faster than we are. Let me just echo in the level of impatience, the level of being able to be have comfort and ambiguity, to be able to know that we're an entrepreneurial organization. Even though LifeMoves has been around for 10 years, we're a reflection of two organizations, InVision and Shelter Network, for about 45 years. And so how do you bring the full force of that history into the work that we're trying to do? So we try to be as transparent as we could. We try to be as human-centered as we could. And let me let folks know out there, being human-centered and really driving technology and innovation aren't at odds with each other. Sometimes people hear AI and they think one exists over the other and you have to make a choice, and it's not binary, they could be blended. And so that the piece that was important. The other piece was really just showing sort of four things that we were looking for. We wanted a partner that can help us on this journey, because this was really new to us. We wanted a partner who was gonna listen to us and sort of understand what's working for us, what's not, what's important to us. We wanted a partner who was going to look at us as a partner, not just a end of cycle sale. And we wanted a partner who wasn't going to build technology platform for us. We wanted a partner who was going to build it with us. And Salesforce walked in as that partner. Provisio is helping us to accelerate that. So when you look across the room with your team and you say, here's a partner that's invested in our success more than a sale of a platform, it also helps demystify this change. So it's really about over communicating, and what we're working on and still have to do a better job on is how do we paint a picture so we can unlock for every staff at every level of the organization that we can amplify their best work possible, from a residential service coordinator to a case manager to somebody who's fundraising to somebody who's overseeing a department to somebody who's in the C-suite. How do we thread the needle in all of that? And so it's an acknowledgement that this takes courage. There's going to be a lot of fear. There's going to be some resistance. Not everybody's going to buy in. So how can you move people that are resistant to a place of neutrality? And then when they get to a place of neutrality, you can move them to a place of really being excited about this. So don't be afraid. This is a major change management effort, but be clear in where you're going and why you're going, and make sure that it's human-centered and that the people drive it, and it's not CEO ego that's trying to get to a place to solve something because it makes me feel good.
That's great. Thank you, Aubrey. And I know we're running out of time here, but I think to follow up, Aubrey, and where you were going from a direction perspective and augmentation, Kathy, I'd like to ask you one closing question, if that's okay. As an organization that's clearly one of the first, if not the first, certainly in behavioral health services, to leverage autonomous AI, how do you proactively address concerns and fears around AI adoption, specifically the fear of job displacement and foster a culture that embraces AI is an opportunity rather than a threat?
Well, I think the conversation about the risk to vulnerable populations is not new. So from the first time a kid could hold a cell phone or interact with something that wasn't human, in the same way, we've been having those conversations for a solid decade or more in the organization about how do you provide access to technology to help them take a first step or to do something they might not have otherwise done, but to get them to human connection as soon as possible. And so we're moving with it with more speed, but I think the issues are still very similar, that we don't want to expose vulnerable populations to something that we don't know is safe and that can both accelerate their mental health, and that will also challenge them to make more human connection, because that is so vital. And by the way, since I'm not a clinician, the fact that I can say that with some authority is really silly. But I do hear it all the time from our team. So I think that's part of it. And knowing, I got involved in this conversation, actually, the predecessor leadership had the vision to start looking at this. It was pre-COVID conversation, having a vision about where, if CalAIM actually came to fruition, that we were going to really have to find a new way to access clients, that we were going to have the chance and opportunity to offer our services, but were we ready to do it?
Yeah.
And I feel like that, because we've been having the conversation for so long, this next iteration, and AI is no small iteration, but this next iteration, I feel like we've been ready because we've been talking about it. And I think we've also been moving incredibly cautiously with the accuracy of data, that we want to make sure that the data in is good and solid. And we were having conversations 2 hours ago about this very issue. How do we make sure that we're doing that we're not creating dependencies on data over human connection? And then as far as the staff worrying about losing their jobs, now I do not believe that, nor would I ever say that in our organization, because from my perspective, there are too many people that need service that are sitting on wait lists that can't get to us. And so we don't need to solve for that. And that's going to be coming no matter what. So our job is to get people into services faster, to get high quality services and make sure we have teams that are ready to do that. That's the conversation, is how are we going to continue to develop a workforce, a precious workforce, a workforce that is more and more peer connected workforce, to be ready to take on work in an augmented way, not to replace a human being, because we don't have enough of the human beings. I don't know if anybody thinks they don't have a workforce problem in this sector, maybe isn't paying attention. So I feel like while we're doing the long game things of making sure that we're doing everything in internships and encouraging schools to create new programming, to bring on more professionals, and to reach out and broaden who we define as a member of our team for all the right reasons, we also have to come along and bring these efficiencies and opportunities to make the work better, for people to feel more confident about what they're doing, and to feel like they're being supported by us. So we're not talking. We don't fear. We live in fear all the time. Fear is what we're in the business of managing, right? So if we need to worry about it, I'm sure I'll hear about it in a few minutes. But I feel like we're going to continue. I will just say as a final note, we need to talk about it. So I think we talk a lot about what we're doing, and how we're moving, and are we really ready for that client-facing agent yet? We need to test it one more time. I mean, all those types of things that are going on in the organization are happening because we're talking about it. And to me, the stickiness that's going on right now is that we have teams that are lining up, like, when do we get to get this? When do we get to use it? When do we get to have the technology to make our lives easier? So you don't have to lead from the top when people are clamoring to get the access.
That's excellent. Thank you. I know we're running a little bit behind, so we're going to open it up for one question for the panel, and then I think that after we're done, I think anybody would welcome questions once we wrap up. So are there any questions for the panel before we get on to the next group? No? On behalf of everyone here gathered, thank you so much for being here, and we're going to move on to the next team members. All right, thank you.
These are the kind of people that I dream of working for. I'm so grateful to Provisio for creating space for us. I currently have incredible leaders. I want to thank Kim and Grant, Michael, Dustin, people that keep me going. And I am so blessed. I get to spend my professional work. I get paid to work with these 6 incredible leaders. I think there's 1,500 sessions at Dreamforce this year. There are endless ancillary events. This is the session that I have been looking forward to the most for several months. And it's because I'm confident that I am sitting here today because of the work that you're doing. I am someone who has walked through life never having met my father. My mother had me at 17. She really had a hard time keeping the bills going. My grandmother stepped in. She suffered from bipolar disorder. My grandmother stepped in, became my legal guardian, and inspired by the services and the community support we received from our community, she became a social worker at the age of 40, still with us, and between the services, between the organizations that held us up and the strength of my grandmother, I sit here today as an employee of one of the largest companies and technology companies in the world. And it is because of the kind of work that you're doing. I hope that you hold that dear. I hope it keeps you up at night. I understand the sacrifices that you make, and it keeps me going. So I am extremely grateful to all of you. You wake me up every morning. And I've seen a lot. I have worked in entertainment. I've led marketing for 3 nonprofits. I cannot tell you, Kathy talked about the importance of leadership. Leadership is what keeps me going. And in this moment right now, the challenges that we're facing in this world, guys, we don't have a government. Our government is shut down. What is going on in the world? Without the courage and the strength of the people that lead our organizations, like these 6 individuals, we cannot survive. We cannot thrive. So I'm so grateful to all of you for the work that you do. Thank you for being with us today. I'm so inspired by this conversation. These are 3 organizations that are in 3 different stages of their Salesforce journey. We're going to unpack that a little bit. These are the leaders of digital transformation. I myself have moved an organization, a nonprofit, from legacy technology to Salesforce, and it is difficult. But when you get to the other side, right, and that's what we're going to talk about today, the power of seeing the impact on our people and on the communities we serve. This is what it's all about. So I'm so excited for you to meet our panel today. I want to invite them to introduce themselves. If you guys could give everyone a sense of your name, your title, and why you felt change was necessary for your organization. We'd love to start the story with why. So Paul, do you want to get us started? And thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you for having us. So yes, happy to get it started. Paul Simpson, I'm the CFO and head of technology at LifeMoves. As you kind of heard, like our why for being here is it really starts at the top. Like I've been at LifeMoves for almost 5 years now. Joined Aubrey at the same time he joined. And really, it was just excited to be on the journey. For me, I think it starts from just being able to dream again. I think as a society, we've all started to accept the fact that like certain problems are just exist. And I think as like nonprofits, like we all exist because we're all trying to solve some type of problem. And we've gotten into this cycle where we've got a way of, can we eliminate the problem though? So we're all doing a great job of, from my perspective, of like managing a problem, and we're doing great work and we're helping great people. But you know, as Aubrey stated, the scale of the solution is not matching the scale of the problem. And that's primarily a tool and data thing. And so I think at prior points in history, nonprofits as an industry has not had those tools to be brought to bear to say, okay, now what can we do with them? And so our why of like, why now starts from we can't accept managing a problem. When you're trying to be a catalytic force to solve something like homelessness, it starts from really recognizing all of us as staff get to go home every night and we sleep with shelter. There's some people who never make it out of being unhoused. And so if that's not your why every day of like, we got to attack this thing, we got to attack it with passion, like we can't accept managing the problem anymore, that sets a tone. And so then the question becomes, great, like how do we start to achieve that internally? And from a CFO's perspective, right? Like we're always thinking about numbers. I think we aspire to never have finance be the reason as why we can't do something that we need to do. And so when you start from that perspective, it starts within finance's job to say, great, provide the tools, right? Plan ahead. Where are they? We see a lot of our nonprofit partners in the last, 12 months, 24 months, like some nonprofits don't make it. Some nonprofits can't take a 10% dip in any revenue channel and can't survive that. That's a tool problem. We all need more resources. We all need the ability to have our staff, because we can't hire our way out of this problem. We need our staff. If we have a staff of a little over 500 at LifeMoves, we need the output of 1,500 from that same 500. And we need them doing the work that they're passionate about. So all the administrative tasks, all that stuff is great, but that's not why someone comes to work every day. They come to work every day to spend time with clients. So this is about like returning your time back to the clients that you serve, returning your time to build the trust with the clients that you serve, to allow them to unlock their best selves, and the tool set that allows you to do that better over time. I think we recognize that most of our data is really descriptive, diagnostic at best. And we do a ton with that diagnostic data, right? But we have to get to a point where we're prescriptive, where from day one when someone comes in, we know what things you need and what we need to provide you to get to a very permanent, like your permanent housing outcome. And so that's what started our change down the nonprofit cloud path. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. You shared it. Work done.
Okay. See me?
Does it work?
Yeah. See me wigging out. There's a little gnat up here with us. You know.
It's feeling the energy.
Yeah. I was like, oh, we got a little friend up here. I am Jacqueline Torres. I'm the Senior Vice President at Pacific Clinic. Somebody called us Pacific Smile on Monday. That was cute. The Global Health Forum. They figured it out. I oversee our emerging statewide services. I have been with this organization for 17 years. Yeah, it's been a flash. We have a lot of longtime legacy folks that work at the organization, and reflecting on it, it's this is a 150-year-old plus organization. So there's something about the center around the mission of the work that holds people. But the thing I like about our organization is this commitment to evolving to meet the community's needs, because people are changing, the world is changing, technology is changing, and then I liked what you said. You're either forced or accidental or deliberate in your innovation. And, for my role, 4 or 5 years ago, I was fortunate to be a part of, I think, a deliberate decision-making, driven by some future thinking about what Cali might change, but how can we be deliberate and out front of innovation? How can we pilot things and test them without breaking the core of services? How do you try new things without asking people who already have a full stack of work to also pilot something? And so we made that deliberate decision to carve out this new service vertical, which has grown enormously through technology enablement, but really through us looking at diversifying the way that we deliver services into different communities. So it's been a real fun ride, and it's been a journey.
Indeed.
Hi, my name is Mindy Lanham. I'm the CAO at Victor. And I was thinking when you said Cal-AIM I sat in a session yesterday and they were talking about the difference between disruptive innovation and sustaining innovation. And I think for a lot of us, the introduction of Cal-AIM in California was a disruption. And I think for both of us, we had CEOs who were really started thinking about the potential of what that meant before it hit. And so we started having really intentional conversations about how do we need to change the way that we work so that we're successful in that new model. And at Victor, it was a lot of conversation too. I think at those points you get to pause, and our conversation started to really start looking at, are the processes that we have in place, are the workflows that we have in place truly client-centered? Are they at the heart of how we do referral and intake? Are they at the heart of how we document the services that we provide to them? And so really thinking about how we leverage technology to meet the disruption and be successful despite that, but also still remembering at the end of the day, when we look at the way we do our work, it's not about us, it's not about our staff. It is about our staff because they're the ones who provide the service, but making sure that the clients that we serve don't get lost in that conversation as we're trying to figure out how to do those things better. So I really appreciated the conversation around the difference between disruption and sustaining innovation. And I do think that CalAIM was the disruptor, but then I think we've had the opportunity to really be thoughtful about what that means for us, and by default, what that means in terms of serving the people that we serve in an excellent way.
Thanks so much, Mindy. So, Paul, I want to start with you. I want to talk about, this is an investment. This is an investment in resources and time. As CFO, you talked about this, right? You've got to think about the numbers. You've got to make sure it's possible. But what is the cost of not moving forward and improving your infrastructure as an organization? What's the cost of not moving a project like this forward?
Yeah, no, great question. I think the cost is mediocrity. Like that's the cost. That's the cost, and it's at that cost that's on the backs of our clients, right? And on the backs of our staff. Our staff have to be their best selves to help our clients. And there's a lot of trauma that all of our staff across all our industries get in trying to serve the clients that we serve. And so not doing something is not allowing people to have that joy and passion they come to work to do every day. It's incumbent upon us to provide the environment and the tools needed for our staff to have success, that every staff can be a rock star in what they do. If you have the ability to get 10% of your clients to a certain outcome, can we make it 60%? The joy, it's I would imagine, my mom's a teacher, the joy of being able to give every student an A and actually have them earn it and achieve that versus just accepting, nope, only 10% is gonna get this, and it's no, we don't have to accept that. In this outcome of getting people something that we believe is a fundamental right, we can have 100% of people get there. It's what do we accept as society, and will we accept something less? So I think it starts there. As a CFO, though, you got to have real metrics. So you have to be very clear about what your value propositions are. And as you go through that discovery of what you're trying to do, what workflows are you trying to automate and improve upon, it's really getting clear about what those outcomes can be. Because you got to have a way to measure your success to are you actually going to achieve what you set out to do? And simple things can I reduce your time of record keeping by 40%? If we can do that, great. What else do you get to do with that 40%? But more importantly, how can I get that 40% to be spent towards driving towards outcomes? Right? We can measure that. We can measure what your time costs. We can measure what the outcome costs. And so you start adding that up, then you start seeing the possibility. The possibility is scale. So we currently right now work within 2 counties. Those 2 counties represent about the 5th or 6th largest unhoused population in this country, right? Silicon Valley has a history of what? People who dare to dream, who start out with an idea, a week later they have a company. 2 years later, right, some funding, right, put some gasoline on that, right? And it's wow, worldwide impact, right? So we know and we believe in this ecosystem, we have everything we need to succeed. There's 12,000 people in those 2 counties. That's not even the size of a basketball arena. So if we can actually get to a solution, right, we know we can scale. And that's the value return on, that's what our funders want to know. That's what our government partners want to know. That's what you all as community members, that's what you want out of the community that you live in, right? When we fail, it's our communities that aren't thriving. So to me, from a finance perspective, it's connecting that. What's the cost that we pay as society? So it's not even LifeMoves cost. What's society's cost? And then what's LifeMoves cost? And so when you start layering those things on top of each other, that's the pathway to understanding the cost or the value proposition of needing to make this transition.
And as I'm listening, I mean, it has to start with leadership, though. And a lot of what we see is the acceptance, right? And that's what I heard. That's probably the most powerful resonant word that you were saying, accepting. It's difficult to watch, having been an employee at a nonprofit. I think it stagnates our ability to recruit people who actually want to solve the problem and are in this culture of managing a problem. So thank you for sharing that. It's such a powerful message. Jacqueline, I want to turn to you. You're 4 years in. I think was just talking about this. So LifeMoves is sort of about a year in to their journey with us. Think about 4 years, think about 2 years, right, for Victor. Take us through that journey from vision, right? We have an idea, this is what we want to achieve, to today, to impact, and how you thought about prioritizing the roadmap. There's so much potential, but what mattered most? How did you prioritize it when you think about the strategic goals that you're trying to achieve in your organization?
Did you say 40? It feels
Four.
like 40
Four.
years.
Does it feel like 40?
Yeah, I've been lucky to be a part of almost all of our Salesforce journey since the beginning. And CalAIM was part of the decision making, but it's really, instead of that concept of clients being brought to you, like on a platter, if you will, like here's everything you need to know about this person and they're ready. It was about the reach in, so the starting to outreach to clients and allowing them choice and voice in who they want to be served by. And our beginning journey, I would say, falls into 3 kind of significant program buckets. We have our crisis services, so our mobile crisis and our trust program. And the trust program is this new innovative project to look at an alternative to 911 response for non-crisis emergencies. And I loved the concept that they got with in the beginning. Is like, and I always describe it like this. It was described to me like this. It's like, if you can order a sandwich and you can ask for it without mayo and you can see it delivered to you, why can't we get crisis services in the same way? Why can't you say, I have a crisis now, and we tell that person, we're on the way, here's how long for your response time. And then we have this ability to see our team in the field instead of sending a text and waiting for that person to get on site and wondering what's happening. And it was really that creativity of that team in the beginning to think differently about a legacy program for the mobile crisis that we've done for many years. And then our education services line started to ask the question about, like, how can we make the access point for teachers easier? How can we evolve the way that we reach into a school? And so that's where we started to use these things like experience portals, but like, how can we improve communication, get out of the email jungle? And like, I'll say this, like, things were living in sticky notes on people's desks. And so it was really that team's drive to say, I want to keep doing this better, and then allowing them to design a system that would let them do it better. And then the most significant in terms of volume and size was our ECM program. So working with multiple health plans directly, that's in over 20 counties, and we're taking in thousands of referrals. We have like 26,000 referrals at any given time in that program. We wanted to get people in quicker, so we want to close the gap to access to care. So we're able to consolidate all of this information into a seamless system and then immediately start to engage. And I mean, that program is still in an evolution every day, thinking about, like, how else can we get to services? And out of those 3 have emerged 30 plus different types of projects, because when you allow the folks doing service delivery to say, this is what we really need to do the services better and more efficiently, client-centered, is that a little motorcycle? Client-centered. So, it's really easy to see the automation and to see the efficiencies and the hours saved on the workforce, but the whole point is to get people into care with the teams quicker. And so that's been a big part of the focus for us.
So powerful. As I was listening to it, it occurred to me, and I don't know if we talked about this when we were preparing, none of these incredible leaders are technologists. And none of you are technologists, but you become technologists, right? Because what you just articulated is a strategy and a journey that was powered by technology. And what struck me the most is allowing your team to have capacity to be creative. And that's really our purpose, right? We want your teams to have no limits to what's possible. So a catalyst like CalAIM shows up, and what you delivered was turning that into an opportunity. And it's just so powerful. And I hope that resonates with your team. We've asked so much of these individuals. They're not only speaking here, but they're speaking everywhere this week, and it's because you're really lifting up the sector. And I hope that really resonates with all of you, because we need to meet the expectations and the changes that are coming. So thank you for sharing that. And speaking of not a technologist, Mindy, who drove just such an incredible accelerated process, I'd love to hear your perspective on your roadmap as well, because when you think about, where you began and where you are now, against so many opportunities, what do you feel is going to have the most profound impact in delivering the quality of care that you're trying to provide and that you do provide at Victor? When you thought about, wow, look, this is what we can do, what's number one for you?
You keep changing the question. I was like, wait a minute, that was the first question I said.
How did you prioritize?
So I think for us, our process was, there were multiple things happening for us. So we were at this point of, how do we leverage technology? What does that look like? We had a very old electronic health record. So that was really the first thing we were thinking about. It was old. And it was customized in-house. So we were dependent on one person to do anything. We weren't in a good place as we thought about what was coming. And so that was the first decision, is we need an electronic health record. We also, as most of you, if you have them, know the limitations of an electronic health record. And so we needed to figure out, what other options do we have? As we started thinking about centralizing intakes, bringing in referrals in different ways, is we knew that EHRs weren't set up to do that. And so then we started having conversations with Provisio, and we implemented Salesforce. And then we layered an AI note generating system on top of that. And so over the last 18 months, we've implemented 3 pretty significant tools for our staff. And I think it's the combination of those 3 things that will move us in a positive direction. So we're just really beginning to feel, when you sent that question, I was like, well, I don't know if any of them would say they're not burned out still, right? Because we've been in this has been an 18-month process. And so we are just now showing our executive leadership, the leaders of our sites across the state, their dashboards. And really, this is the culmination of all of this work that you've done, is being able to, in real time, track timely access. So why are we not getting people in on time? Or, we are getting these folks in on time. What are they doing? Being able to monitor our fidelity to models of care. So we're leveraging Salesforce to help us, based on an assessment, assign levels of care. And then how are we monitoring that? So how are we ensuring that our staff have the tools in real time at their fingertips, and not waiting for reporting? So one of you all talked about reporting. Being a report-driven organization is you're always 2 weeks, a month behind. And so those are the tools that we're bringing to them. And so I think we're starting to see some excitement around it, but it's very fresh because they've all put in a lot of work. I mean, that transformation is when the integration doesn't work exactly the way you want, or you didn't think about the fact that you needed to bring in active clients into the new, that's dual data entry for people, that's having to do stuff over again. And so that's a lot of work that goes into that. And people can remind me again, like, why are we doing this? Like, you said this was a good idea. Could you really help us understand why? And so these dashboards are really that opportunity for them to see the value of that hard work that they've put into that setup. And I think laying the foundation just being here this week is laying the foundation for agents, that data infrastructure that we need to be able to leverage those in an effective way. So we've been doing a lot of the hard work, building that foundation. And so I think as we really think about the roadmap moving forward, it's still gonna be hard, but I think this is kind of that, in the weeds, really nuts and bolts kind of stuff that people have been working on to lay the foundation for being able to leverage some of this technology and even creating more efficiency and, again, overall just a better experience for our clients and families.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Mindy. So I'd love to close out and give everyone an opportunity to share. A lot of organizations new to Salesforce starting their journey. Would love for you to share lessons learned, what you would do differently, what you have more context around now, and share insights with the audience.
Happy to. I think don't be scared. We know it's intimidating, but this is truly about not. There's really no risk here. This is all about gain, right? Like whatever your current situation is, this is like there's only upside here. There's not downside, and I think that's easy to forget. And we can kind of start the conversation by trying to talk ourselves out of what we need to do. So I think first is just jumping in truly with intent. It does take the time to just really think about like, what are my processes? What am I trying to get out of this? How am I going to measure it? Like there's no shortcut to that. At the same time, it doesn't have to be perfect from day one.
Yeah.
The technology is growing way faster than any process that you come out with. And you have an amazing army at Salesforce who's working hard behind the scenes that's advancing the tool literally week by week. And so if you can just narrow it down to like, where will I get my highest ROI first? Like what processes are like, can I get the biggest bang for buck for and focus that? The power of the agentic workforce is that you can really become very specialized and very good at very small data sets, at very small actions. So it's like, how can I be excellent at my intake or my welcoming process to make sure that like I got everything I need and everyone has it exactly right. Like simple things like that, like that's what the agentic force is great at. So everyone can be just profound at that. You don't have these varying levels. And so while you're going through and thinking through your transition, it's just prioritizing those. Know that the technology, as you're seeing here today, it's just the start of it, but the ability to build agents on data sets is super quick. And so you can quickly add and truly have a force. Like you can have an agentic force within 12 months once you get started. So it's just like not getting intimidated by that, but knowing that you'll have the ability to truly catch up. And the last thing I'll say is that I think stressing internally that the going on this technology platform is a way to democratize technology. And what I mean by that is, like, thus far, only people that are comfortable with technology get the benefits of technology. And we all have staff that are like, I'm not coming. So like, they don't get that value add. When you think about things of how you're making the agents more conversational style, in the same way that we use our phones and we prompt Google just to ask questions, to be able to ask a question your native way that you as an individual ask the question and get the output, and realizing that we're all different, the agents will learn and will start to allow us all to ask the question our individualized way and get the same answer. Like that's the power, because then you're not worried about like, oh, I got to go through and create all these manuals and everyone has to learn how to do all these things. It's like we just set you loose and it's just, well, ask questions that you might know the answer to. They help you do your job. So those are the takeaways for me.
I love it. All right.
Okay, here's my hazards. It's not magic. That was the first thing. And I've been in a lot of different of our Salesforce implementation projects, and then you want to go show somebody a tutorial of it, and you're like, ta-da! It's information on the page. So they're like, it's how it moves. That's the important part. So the part that isn't magic is that you have to think completely fresh about your workflow, which is really hard to do. Like, imagine if I don't know why I'm thinking about this. Imagine if I showed you a quicker way to tie your shoe. And it's like, this shoe's got to get tied because it's really important. You would want to naturally go back to the way that you're used to tying your shoe because you've always tied it like that, and it works eventually to get the shoe tied. So I think of it as it's a really weird space to live in when you know you do good work and it has a good outcome, to think that there's a different way to do it. So you've got to be really comfortable with sitting in the discomfort of, let me try this a different way to get the same quality outcome. And then it is so iterative. And It's supposed to be iterative because as you learn and as you evolve and you grow, and then you built it and it's launched, and then you're like, oh, but we need this, or we got to add this part of it. You got to live in this comfort zone of going back to it every single time. So that is the nature of technology. That's why there's a new cell phone launch every year and all these things. Like, so you have to think about that yourself when you're thinking about the platforms. And then you got to have some people who would just go. You've got to have a team of people who are willing to just go. Kathy says fail fast. I take that as permission to fail. And you do. You have to fail fast and pivot and change it again and be solution focused and just try to stay in that.
You sound like a technologist. I don't know. Bravo. Well said. Mindy, let's close this out.
I was thinking along similar lines. Is I do think I appreciate all of the kind of conversation about moving fast, but I do think there are times in the process where you need to pause. And you need to have really intentional conversations because if you're not careful, you're going to create technology to do the thing the way you're doing it now. You're just going to lay new technology on it to do it the same way you're doing it. And so to be mindful enough to pause and step back and ask questions. Why do we do it this way? Who's asking us to do it this way? Is this best for the clients and families that we serve? So that you're having those really intentional conversations. Because I think about for us in our process and the times where I think you get in a hurry or there's a deadline or something you want to meet and you maybe don't stop to have that conversation. And then about 2 months later, you're like, maybe we should have had that conversation 2 months ago because you're looping back, right? So it's not right. And if you'd taken the time to have that conversation initially, you would have saved yourself some heartburn later down the line. And so I do think, right, I appreciate this momentum of needing to move fast, fail quick. Evolution is part of the process, but I do think there's value in finding time to pause when you need to pause, to have those really important conversations about how you're moving forward.
Well said. Being thoughtful and intentional while moving the project forward. Well, a round of applause for Paul, Jacqueline, and Minnie. Thank you so much. We're so grateful to you. It just doesn't get any more inspiring. I want to invite Travis back up. We're going to close out. One thing we didn't talk about, and I think it's just really critical, is this work also being a driver of storytelling. We really need the technology to help us tell our story, bring people into the mission. So we're going to talk a little bit about this, and LifeMoves has a very special video that they're going to share with us today as well. But Travis, please come back up. Thank you again to the Provisio team for hosting us today.
Thank you so much. How about a round of applause for Val? She does it so effortlessly. Like, she had the piece of paper, but I think it's more of like just in case. She doesn't need to look at that or anything as I'm monitoring my cue cards and things like that. So we want to take time for questions, but we are running a little bit behind. So I think that we have the grace of everyone that's been up here as panelists. Thank you. And everyone, and I would suggest that for probably a better, deeper conversation, please feel free to approach them. I'm in the middle of a happy hour right now, or in between you and a happy hour. Never a good position. But they're going to stick around. I would invite you to please pull them aside to ask questions. We do have a few more things here. I'd invite you for Victor's front door. If you look at that the QR code with your phones, I would invite you, if you get that QR code, it will bring up what Victor has done with their front door as they best serve individuals. Incredible innovation. We're so proud of all the things that they've done and privileged to be their partner in that journey. Oh, hold on. We also have Pacific Clinics. If you'd like to learn more about Pacific Clinics and their journey and the wonderful services that they provide, I would invite you to please pull up their information. And before I get to the LifeMoves video, which I will leave you with, on behalf of everyone here, I want to thank each of you. Thank you so much for being here and, quite frankly, being vulnerable. We had talked about a familial type of environment here as we got together. I want to thank Simona, Kathy, Aubrey, all of you. Thank you so much on behalf of all of us. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. It's fantastic. Thank you. And And I would also like to say that all of these organizations have presented either today or tomorrow here at Dreamforce, which is an incredible, incredible opportunity for us all to learn from the wonderful things that they're doing and moving forward. And again, I would invite you to pull any one of them aside for a conversation. So with that, I will leave you with a wonderful video for LifeMoves, and on behalf of Salesforce, Provisio, Off-Prem, and Mowgli, and everyone here, thank you so much for spending your time with us. It's appreciated. Thank you.
Once, people without a place to call home made us feel uncomfortable. Not uncomfortable for not doing enough, but a discomfort in all hearts when one looks away. Once, we concerned ourselves with our differences, not the difference each of us could make. Once, we called someone in the street criminal, when the only crime was failing to honor the heroic. And we left unrecognized without the gratitude of a nation. Once we were afraid that someone might get something without working as hard as we did. Not how hard it was to find work. Once you have lived without a place to lay your head, how could a dream possibly find you? Like piecing together clouds as they dissolve in the air. Once we thought things had to be the way they were. Why didn't we harness the power of our collective will and change the way things are? That the world can be different. Away from alcoholic to hopeaholic. It is action which unlocks potential and the fullness of life. It can turn what little one has into enough. It creates acceptance and changes stranger into friend. It turns four walls into a home and a meal into a feast. But it is a choice each of us must make on their own. To be or not to be accountable to our internal witness. What do we stand for? Who will we stand with?